All right, welcome to Free Thinker Radio. Micah, I'm here with Derrick and Johnny.
Yo.
Glad to be here.
Another week on KPFT, the home of Free Thinker Radio, which is the home of what? Uncensored news.
Yeah, outside the left-right paradigm.
Local music and music from all around, events.
Yeah, definitely.
Interviews with
Rex
awesome
Hudson.
people.
Rex Hudson
That was
music.
Rex Hudson.
That
Pretty
was.
cool.
You can hear him this end of the month here on Bohemios for the community.
Awesome.
Oh, I do want to bring up something while we're going about. I guess it was either last episode, Johnny, or the one before. We had a caller. He wanted to debate you, Derrick. I say you because
While I
he
was
said
gone?
us, but I don't really want to
He
debate him.
specifically asked for Derrick.
Yeah, there you
Did
go.
he?
There you
Okay,
go.
well, that's fun. So, about what?
The vaccine issue.
Vaccines.
He was somebody who.
I'm so glad you said that because I didn't know that,
No,
and I wanted to duck out of that one because I'm just against mandatory.
Well,
I don't
don't-
want to debate vaccines.
Well,
That's
don't worry, Micah. You can duck out of whatever you want.
Okay, so you said, Johnny, this guy called in, or he or she, whoever?
He was very polite. He's a cool guy. He just has a different view, and he's somebody who called in, I believe, 2 weeks ago, and you had a conversation.
The one
with
that we
him.
went back and forth?
Y'all went back and forth for a little bit, and we had a call, and then we had calls about that call.
Do we remember
so
his name?
No, but I
don't
gave him
recall.
my email, and because we don't have a free thinker email, so I gave him my email, and he said he'd email, and I thought it was a great idea because we're always taking calls, taking different points of view, and discussing what they contribute, and moving the analysis forward. But I thought this was interesting because the guy wanted to also. He thought that the whole. I guess community radio. I talked on that episode about how commercial radio often costs more than KPFT costs to run, and it basically costs about about $150 an hour or so to keep KPFT running, and that's a bargain compared to a lot of stations. And he said, he wanted to contribute $150, but he wanted to come on and debate you. And I thought that was great because he recognized some value and he wanted to contribute to the dialogue, which is
what the show's about.
Hey, man, bro, that's what I'm
So,
talking
well,
about.
let me share my thoughts on that too, caller, which I guess we don't have his name, but so thanks for calling in, of course, the first time, and thanks for the offer on that. I'm totally down.
Still looking for your email, yo.
Totally down. Yeah, I guess we're waiting on email. But one thing I want to know from you, and this will sort of shape my answer. I might be down either way, but it definitely has a part in what my answer is.
He didn't have
Are
a
you
choice.
trying to debate vaccination science, or are you trying to debate what we were discussing, which is mandatory vaccinations? Because absolutely down to debate, the morality or immorality of mandatory vaccinations and the ethics of that whole situation. When it comes to the science, for one, I want to restate that we've never said that vaccines have never saved lives, that all vaccines kill, or any of these kind of claims. You've never heard that here on Free Thinker Radio. If anything, maybe from a caller, but never from Micah, me, or Johnny. So I just want to get that out of the way. But also, I do think there are questions about certain areas, pertaining to more the corruption of government and some of the systems, like we've talked about the vaccine injury court. So I'd be happy to have a discussion about some of that as well. But I'm definitely not trying to take on a debate that is me being the anti-vaxxer that doesn't believe in vaccines.
This
or
is
something
what I
like
was
that.
ducking out of right there.
Yeah, so that's as long as the framing is correct and honest, then absolutely we would love to have your contribution to KPFT, and I would love to discuss, debate, however you want to put it, that idea. Let's set it up for next Friday. So if you got Micah's email, then email, and let's set this up so we get the times figured out.
Maybe someone else is hearing this and wants to discuss gun legislation.
Yeah,
or
we
something
welcome
else.
almost all debates.
Yeah, that's that could
Almost
be a
all.
new part of the show if you guys want it to, because this is your show as well. That's why we like you to call in 713-526-5738. Speaking of call in just a moment or two, we're going to have Michelle Aaron Fain, who is one of the organizers of, coincidentally enough, the Houston Millions March Against Mandatory Vaccinations, which we've been telling you about all month.
If I donate $150, will you fight Johnny?
Hey, this is not that kind of show. We're not taking bets to take each other on. But yeah, so we have Michelle calling in to talk about the mandatory vaccination issue again. So I'm sure we'll have more callers. And if you're listening again today, call back in and talk to Johnny. We'll put you back on for a moment, but not this is a debate. But we're going to have her call. We've been talking about that all month and last month, and hear once more why this woman and others think this issue is important, and why they are organizing a march for tomorrow, and why people all around the country are organizing a march. So we'll hear more about that in a moment. But Micah,
I was clowning.
you know
What's
what the question
march all
is.
about?
You know what the question
I'm trying to
is.
avoid the question. All right.
What did
What's
you
the
do this
question?
weekend?
What did you do this weekend?
Or what are you doing this weekend?
Or
Either or.
Yeah. He
How's your
always
week?
asks this question.
How was your
so he
week,
knows
Johnny?
what to go do.
I had a good week, man. And over the weekend, I was in Austin. I played a show at Kick Butt Coffee. It was pretty fun.
That's what it's called?
And then I was lazy. Yeah, it's actually an awesome coffee shop. It's a local shop just north of Austin, and they actually do teach martial arts there. And it's a coffee shop / music venue. So it's pretty popular. I liked it. It was fun, and I falsely advertised a show that's actually tonight.
Nice. Good segue to the show that's tonight also.
Yeah. There's a rap show at the House of J, rapper named Gilla. Yeah. He's really popular. So
and
he's going to
Nightmare.
be playing tonight in Worst Nightmare.
Oh, dude, I thought I missed that. I might come to that then because I literally have nothing to do.
Yeah, you should probably come if you don't have anything to do.
I was just going to sit at home and cry.
Don't cry. I'll hold you.
Well, I mean, cry at how happy I am.
So it's going to be Gilla, Worst Nightmare,
You ruined it.
Dreddy, Substance, Mannequin Mishap, Mars Alva.
Mannequin Mishap.
Yeah.
Kind of a mixed show.
It's a really mixed show, and there's also going to be, I think, 7 or 8 art vendors and a raffle to win a $100 tattoo. And not to mention, Eighth Wonder Brewery is sponsoring it, so there's going to be free beer and alcohol until it runs out.
Whoa, man.
So
that sounds like one heck of a place to be.
Yeah. And it's a $10, or I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but...
No.
It might take a little bit of money to get in.
Yeah, it might take some money to get in. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah.
And this is at the House of J?
Yes, 323 Hutchison Street. If anyone's bored, come out and have some fun tonight.
I'll keep that in mind when I get bored.
Sunday, our friends at Nova Skyway, along with Diosa and To Whom It May, will be at Scout Bar. So that might be a good way to welcome September if you haven't been out there in a while. That's a good lineup. Got other things coming up. I think tonight sounds pretty fun. I'm glad he misquoted the date, though, because now we get to
It's
talk
a better
about
week
again.
for it.
Yeah, you know what? Tomorrow there's a Cannabis Open Carry Walk event, music and speakers at Crystal Beach for people who are interested in that.
Isn't the Millions March tomorrow as well?
So the Millions March we're going to hear about in just a moment is from 9 a.m. till noon over at Herman Park, and then the Cannabis Open Carry Walk thing is going on at Crystal Beach pretty much from 1 till late. There's going to be lots of different performers, all kinds of music, some speakers, and yeah, the Cannabis Open Carry. It's the intersection of cannabis rights with gun rights.
Nice.
Pretty cool.
And just exercise it wherever you feel. But also, I've seen that Brazil here in Montrose has been having music. Thought that was kind of interesting. Harry Shepard's going to be there Monday, September 2nd. Mason von Grayenberg.
Is that a
was
new
just
venue?
there.
What is that?
No, it's a restaurant that's been there for a while, but they have a little patio area, and they've been there for a long time. But it's free music, kind of chill type environment, but you can go by, have some dinner. I used to sometimes, as bad as it is to confess this, be riding a bike everywhere and swinging there just to put a poster up and grab a drink of water. Well, I'm not joking, but they have really good food and I enjoy it.
If
and
you don't give someone free water in Texas, then
then you probably won't stay in business because I have gone back there to buy stuff. But yeah, Harry Shepard, his jazz musician, is going to be there. Our friend Mason von Grayenberg has played there, and I guess it's going to be an ongoing thing. So we'll be talking about. I guess it'll be more of that sort of chill sort of show. So, yeah, that's what I've seen going on. Are we going to have a call soon?
She's on the line right now. I think Johnny's getting her. Yeah,
nice.
So lots of cool things coming up this weekend in Houston, and we want you guys to plug into that. We'll post a bunch of those events on the Freethinker Radio Facebook page for those who follow on Facebook, or Visionary Noise, another home for shows and things you can see about what's going on around town.
J-Fest the 3rd, September 7th.
And, of course, just one more reminder, For the Community is coming up September 27th and 28th. But right now we're going to get to our guest who's going to tell us all about an event taking place tomorrow morning. It is called the Houston Millions March. I believe we have Michelle with us. Are you there?
Yes. Hi. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for calling in. It's nice to finally talk. I'm here with my co-host Micah and Johnny.
Hi, Micah. Hi, Johnny. I am going to talk a little bit about the Millions March. It's going to start at 9 a.m., and it will be down at Herman Park. It will start at the Natural Science Museum at 555 Herman Park Drive, and we're essentially just marching for medical freedom. We're going to be marching from that Natural Science Museum around to the zoo, and then we're actually going to come back to the Natural Science Museum where we're going to kind of have like a rally, and then we're going to have some guest speakers.
Awesome, Michelle. Well, so before we get more into the march and talk a little bit about that issue, because I don't know if you heard any of the show so far, but we've we cover this issue fairly often, and it is, as you're aware, controversial in some circles. So we had a a caller say that they want to debate one of us soon on this topic. So it's interesting. We know callers have a very strong feelings on both sides of this. But before we get into all that, tell everybody a little bit about yourself, if you don't mind, and how you came to be involved in this event.
Sure. So I was pregnant, actually, and I had a friend who was, I wouldn't say she's an anti-vaxxer, more of an ex-vaxxer. Her son was definitely autistic from his vaccines, and she knew that without a shadow of a doubt. She was like, this is definitely what happened. And like, we know our children more than anyone on this planet as mothers. And so I was pregnant, and she was kind of like, she didn't really, directly, tell me not to vaccinate, but the way that she handled her other two children, she didn't vaccinate them. And so I knew that about her, and we had talked about that. So it kind of just sparked my interest, and I was like, well, why didn't you vaccinate them? And I just kind of started to dive into that while I was pregnant. And I just started researching, and, everyone thinks like, oh, like anti-vaxxers, we just read mommy blogs and call it a day. And that's like absolutely not the case. I spent hundreds upon hundreds of hours researching peer-reviewed scientific studies and just really diving deep. And to the point where like I wouldn't even sleep because I was just so intrigued by like what, my next topic was going to be as far as like the, vaccine ingredients. And then I would go into herd immunity, and I would kind of go into like all of these different like subtopics and the neurotoxins and just like the carcinogens that they contain and all these things. And it's like, once you start researching that and you start diving into all of these scientific studies that are government studies, they're PubMed studies, you start to realize like, the science is really on the side of not vaccinating, but we're just not told about this stuff.
Well, let me ask you a question, Michelle, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So thank you for giving us some of that background. I think that's a story that we've heard before from some callers. But I want to play devil's advocate for a moment and ask you a question that I'm sure some of the people who, again, are who don't like us talking about this topic on air are saying. Well, what do you say to someone who would say, well, you're not a scientist or you're not a doctor yourself, you're not qualified to interpret these studies or these kind of claims? How would you respond to that?
I would just say that, like, because, that's a fair question. I'm a stay-at-home mom. Why would I have any, why would I know anything, right? Why would I be able to interpret these things? But the more that you start to read these articles and the more that you even listen to different doctors who are, I know two Western medical doctors who are against vaccines, right? So that, I'm not the only person who's like,
sure.
like, I shouldn't, I can't interpret these studies. But I think that as a mother, and if you can read, you start to really be able to, I know I would look up terms and I would look up things and I would really grasp an understanding of what the study was saying. So, I guess it's up to just kind of like he said, she said, right? Like, you
Sure.
can't interpret it because you're not qualified. It's like, well, I disagree.
Yeah, I understand. I definitely, I think I probably lean towards that direction. So let's talk a little bit more about the march, though. So you've been on this journey, and now I know this march is being organized nationally, and we've been covering it over the last month or so. But tell everybody a little bit about this march. So one of the last callers we had, I think it was Lori a couple weeks ago, she made it clear, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, that this event is not meant to be an anti-vaxxer event. And here at the Freethinker Radio, we don't even honestly like that term. We try to stay away from it because we do think it's a way to sort of short-circuit, critical thinking and
I think it's a
conversation.
bit of a fanatical term because it groups everybody that has a opposing view as being like just against it in general, which is, just too much of a blanket statement. It seems very fanatical. It seems very hardliner.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I personally...
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I personally believe that everyone should have the opportunity and the choice and be informed and then be able to make their own decision for their own family. So this is more of a medical freedom movement than it is anything. It's just like, hey, we're marching for our rights, but we're also marching for yours. And that would be the also opposing side, because everyone really should be able to choose for their family what they do medically. And so that's the heart of this movement. And I think that a lot of times, you're right, anti-vaxxer is a term that, and I use it often because when you're in this, I guess, movement, sometimes it's easy to get really left-sided or right-sided, right? Depending on what side you're on.
Yeah.
So it's really easy to just do that. But we have people who do delayed schedule, and it's like they need to have freedom too. You know what I mean? This is definitely a freedom march. It's not an anti-vaccine march, but we will be passing out information for people. A lot of risks, and there are a lot of things involved with vaccinating, and so it's kind of like one of those that everyone needs to look at the information with an open mind and an open heart, and then make a decision.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
whatever anyone wants to make for their family, they should be able to do. So that's why we're marching.
Well, we appreciate that. And so tell everybody one more time where the event's going to be at, and I'm guessing there's a Facebook page.
Yeah, so it's going to be Millions March Houston is the actual Facebook page if anyone wants to go, and it's a public event, so anyone can go on there and say that they're going. And it's at 555 Herman Drive, and that is the Natural Science Museum downtown, right by Herman Park, across from there's like a garden over there, and then there's like a little golf course, and kind of like right in that area. So we're going to start at the Natural Science Museum, or Museum of Natural Science.
Gotcha.
I'm saying it backwards.
9 a.m.?
We're starting there. Yep.
You were cutting out just a little bit. You say the event starts at 9 a.m.?
Yes, it starts at 9 a.m. and it goes until 12. So 9 a.m. will be kind of when everyone meets, and then we're going to be marching at 9:30, and then we're going to return around 10:45, 11:30-ish for speakers. 10:45 to 11:30. I'm sorry, for speakers, and then 12 is going to be just when it ends. So it'll go from 9 to 12, and anyone's really welcome to kind of come whenever during that time. It's gonna, we're gonna start at the Natural Museum of Science, but we'll also be at the zoo. So it's like if someone shows up a little late and they don't see us there, then come to the zoo. We're going to be in between there somewhere. So.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you calling in and sharing all this information, a little bit of your background and why you're called to this, because I think it's important for people to understand whether they agree or disagree or interested in the march or not, just where you're coming from as a person, and we've tried to share some of that throughout this month. And everybody who's interested, it's Millions March Houston on Facebook, and thank you so much, Michelle.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right, have a nice day.
I think it's interesting, as she said, like it's framed medical freedom. Because could you imagine living in such a fundamentalist society that you might not be able to get a vaccine? I mean, I can imagine such scenarios, especially when vaccines were new. So, there could be such a society where you are denied a vaccine that you knew would help you and your family. So medical freedom, right?
It could also be that they only want you to have this one specific medicine. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
it's like it could affect your choice to choose medicine A versus medicine B.
Well, in medical freedom, health freedom, it extends to other topics too that we've covered, like, for example, water fluoridation, which is controversial again, and whether people are ready to listen to the evidence that shows, health issues with fluoride or not. The point is that it's being put in the water. And here in Houston, every time you pay your water bill, it goes towards the fund that puts the fluoride in the water. Whether you choose to medicate yourself that way, it's supposed to be good for your teeth, but you're drinking it and you're showering.
It's industrial waste.
That.
It's
so that's another area where you don't have a choice.
Hole.
You don't have a choice in that area because somebody else is making that medical choice for you. I think we got another caller on the line, Johnny.
Yummy.
No, he cursed
Gave
at me,
up.
so I hung up on him.
Yeah, no
Cursed-
profanity.
all right.
You have to.
If you curse at me, I will hang up on you.
Johnny
Right.
reserves the right to, he decides
You
who
have to
gets
be
on the
FCC
air,
compliant
basically.
to even talk to Johnny.
He didn't want to talk. He wanted us to ask he wanted us to ask her what her education level was over and over again, and I tried to explain that we kind of covered that topic already.
Because facts are somehow determined by an
and he
education
started
level.
yelling at me, said something about Trump, and I hung up on him.
Oh, must be one of those guys who believes in presidents. That's pretty bad.
You're one of those kind that think that those people have power, that they, that you don't have power, or one way or the other. But thank you for the calls. We're going to keep taking them, 713-526-5738. And this is, we do have a loose system. This is around the time that we take calls for those who are interested. Then we play some music. Then we get back with more news, and we take some more calls. But, me and Micah and Johnny, we got a lot to cover, so we can't always take the calls.
We do have a lot to cover, and
So I know you got something, Micah.
And because of that, I want to remind everybody listening that we're also on Monday from 4 to 6 p.m. on the HD2.
2 whole hours.
Yeah, so listen to us online or with your HD tuners. 2 hours, a lot more music, a lot further in-depth conversations. I want to remind everybody our phone number, 713-526-5738, to give us a call. You want to get into some local?
I think we got a call waiting.
Oh, they're lighting it up.
All right, somebody, who we got on the line?
My name is Sabrina Corrigan.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
We're doing well today. What's on your mind?
So I just heard Michelle speak about the Millions March, and you had asked her a question about, how do you answer people that say that you can't comprehend these studies. And it's funny because I'm good friends with Michelle, and I'm actually in the same room with her. So I decided to call in and kind of add my comment to this.
Sure.
I was one of those moms that doubted my ability to read these studies. Michelle was the one that told me to look when I was pregnant. I'm going to get emotional. And I didn't look because I looked a little and felt very overwhelmed and thought, you're right, I don't have a medical degree. I can't decipher all these studies. And I set it aside. And I went ahead and I vaccinated my son. And at 9 months, he had a reaction. So now I know that I am educated enough to read these studies because I've done it now. I've gone through them, and words I can't comprehend, I look up. And, it seems very overwhelming when you're a mom at first, but you realize just how much is at stake, and you have to make it work. You have to dig into the information, no matter how uncomfortable it makes you feel.
Absolutely.
So I just want to add that there are parents out there that do feel that they can't interpret these studies, but they can if they just try, and they really need to because it's our children's lives at stake.
Definitely. Thank you for speaking up to the empowerment of others with that, because we all went to school, and despite, it being state school and all that, we learned to read, and we probably learned to read before we went there. But that's the promise of learning to read, and a thing like science, the system, being able to have systemized results that anyone can understand if they bother to do the work. I mean, that's the whole point. So thank you for speaking that to people, because it doesn't only apply to the vaccine issue. It applies to every single thing in your life, from fixing the car on. I mean, if you can't read a book and go if then and start understanding, looking up words you don't understand, then you'll never be free. And I'm sorry to put it like that, but it's really pretty much true in this day and age. So thank you for delivering that point. It's very important.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for accepting my call.
Absolutely. Thank you. Have a good day. Johnny, we got any other callers?
No more callers right now.
Did somebody yell at you again?
Is my girlfriend.
Oh, okay.
But what are all these red lights?
What does she have to say?
All these red lights?
What did your girlfriend have to say? She's not going to call
She's
her?
not even going to talk to us.
Dang,
she literally had nothing to say.
All right. Well, thanks for the call either way. Micah, go ahead with your story.
She was quiet. She's just like, I wanted to hang out with you quietly. I like how he's giving her a shout out, like in the background. That's so sweet.
It's a little cute shout out. Yes. Yeah. If you love somebody, give them a hug today.
Yeah, definitely. Shout outs.
Shout out to Gerald Goins.
Shout out to Gerald Goins, who needs more love.
Hopefully rotting in jail.
He needs love. He needs some empowerment. And at this point, the biggest thing I can say that could empower him is maybe some reversing of some ills that he did.
Something went wrong somewhere along the way.
He needs Jesus.
Let's just be real. Something went wrong somewhere along the way.
Something went wrong. That
Gerald Goins is who, of course, now?
Well, he was a member of the HPDs till they wouldn't have him anymore once he was accused of murder. Who fraudulently completed a paperwork for a warrant application for the Tuttle's house, which resulted in the deaths and all that we've been talking about pretty much every week since January.
Yeah.
There were some interesting things that we covered just recently, and I think one of the aspects that I talked about either last show or the one before was the system by which they went to get the warrant. And I talked about the municipal judge who approved the warrant, despite several things that could have stood out as flags about that. And if you want to get into that article, you could, check out the archives. I believe it was on Monday's HD show. But I thought it was really interesting because there were reasons that even the judge should have suspected the warrant besides it being fraudulent. But it turns out that the plot thickens because now we've heard that like 14,000 cases were under review that were tied with this narcotics officer, tied to this officer. And at present, a Texas prisoner, I guess this is the second one, that has filed an appeal that's accusing ex-HPD officer Gerald Goins that we're hoping for some empowerment for. This one accuses him of framing him, this one back in 2006. And see, this is another problem with these because whether the individual was framed or not, these will always be suspicious at these points. So let's get into it a little bit. Turns out that Antoine Reginald Christian is a Texas prisoner who filed an appeal alleging he was wrongfully convicted as a result of misconduct. Basically, he was victimized by Houston police. The Texas prisoner filed an appeal saying he was framed on a drug offense. Framed on a drug offense. Does that sound familiar? Drug offense. Made up framed drug offense. The former Houston police officer recently charged with felony murder for his role in the deadly drug raid that prosecutors now say was based on a lie. If you look at the seriousness of what's happened and what we've got him charged with, it does bring his entire career into question, is what Harris County DA Kim Ogg said just Tuesday. After examining more than 2,000 cases handled by Goins and his former partner Stephen Bryant, prosecutors expanded their review to include some 14,000 cases. That's a lot of cases. Think of all the time and money.
14,000, not 1,400, right?
That's right. 1-4 with 3 zeros. And think how many days that is, of arresting people. Involving other members of the same narcotics squad. And if there's an indication of additional wrongdoing by other officers, prosecutors may need to notify thousands more defendants about possible problems with their convictions. Turns out that Alex Bunnin, who's a Harris County public defender, says that he thinks there's going to be a lot more appeals ahead. And his office is the one that's handling the second appeal, which is this one followed by Christian. Nicole DeBorde, who is representing Goins in his murder case, did not offer comment on the appeal, noting that it isn't related to the criminal case against her client. How do you like that one? The 52-year-old prisoner started working on his case himself after the DA's office began sending out letters in March, warning hundreds of former defendants that Goins had some type of involvement in their arrest. Christian got one of those letters on March 10th. Wrote an appeal without the help of an attorney. See, nobody told him, you're not good enough. You didn't go to law school, but he wrote his appeal.
Figured it out.
Yeah, you don't always need an expert. They can make things easier.
Expert.
They can make things easier because they know that system, right?
Cost you some money.
Yeah, but you're going to trade something for it because nobody works for free. And filed it in court this month. Even though prisoners aren't automatically entitled to free legal representation at this stage of the appeals process, prosecutors took the uncommon step of suggesting that the court appoint him an attorney, citing Goins' involvement in the case. In November 2006, Christian was detained after walking out of a Specs liquor store. So y'all watch out there. Then, according to the court filing, Goins showed up and accused Christian of lying about money he had on him. Christian said it was from his paycheck, but Goins searched the car in the lot and allegedly found cocaine and a gun. So Christian disputed that discovery and now argues that the police offense reports recording the incident was, quote, intentionally fabricated to justify the initial mistaken identity and subsequent arrest for a crime he says he never committed. A thorough reading of the report will establish that at no time did Officer Goins establish that he found evidence of a crime on applicant's person, Christian wrote, or that applicant was part of the incident that occurred that evening. The car was never impounded or recorded with enough detail to tie the drugs in it to Christian, and his fingerprints were never found on the gun. There exists a reasonable probability that the guilty verdict cannot be supported with confidence and has resulted in a miscarriage of justice, he wrote. The applicant is entitled to a full acquittal in this matter. Aside from faulting Goins and for his alleged mishandling of his case, Christian faulted his defense attorney, who he says told him he should take the plea should plead guilty because a jury wouldn't believe him over a cop. Yeah, anybody hear that one before?
Oh my God.
Yeah, I have.
Okay, even if they did lie, the attorney allegedly said the jury is going to believe the arresting officer 9 out of 10 times. You know, that could just be a stat that's true, and your lawyer probably does need to tell you that before they believe you with your record. If I were you, I would take the deal. So, let's keep going because this article got a little bit more in it. If he wins his appeal and the courts decide to vacate his drug conviction, he'll still have to finish out those current sentences, but it would mean that he'd have one less conviction on his record if he gets in trouble again. The other appeal winding through the courts is Otis Mallet, a Houston man who alleges he was framed in a crack bust. His 2011 conviction stemmed from a drug arrest 3 years earlier when Goins met up with Mallet's brother Stephen to bust him, based on an undercover buy. The officer gave Stephen Mallet $200 in police funds, he said, then watched him go over to Otis Mallet, who plucked something out of a can in his trunk and handed it over in exchange for the cash. Afterwards, Stephen returned with the drugs. Goins was the only witness to the alleged act. How do you like that? One officer's word. After he drove away, backup officers swooped in to arrest Otis Mallet, seizing a can containing crack cocaine from behind the house next door. On the stand, Goins testified that he'd seen Otis Mallet hide the can behind a neighbor's house, but the neighbors disputed that claim. Anything like that sound familiar? Neighbors disputing claims?
Where have we heard that before? Everywhere.
Though Stephen Mallet pled guilty to avoid waiting months for a trial, Otis Mallet took his case to trial and lost. Last year, attorney Jonathan Landers filed an appeal claiming that the state had suppressed evidence that could have helped prove someone else hid the drugs. The new evidence discovered in this case shows that Officer Goins testified falsely and that no drug deal, as described by Goins, took place, Landers wrote in court documents. Mallet was convicted based on Goins' perjured testimony.
And how many years were you saying?
Man, these people have been in jail for a long time. This guy's
13?
only been in for 8, but the other guy has been in since 2003. That's 16 years, okay? The appeal was delayed after the clerk's office misplaced some of the case records, blah, blah, blah. Let's see. The latest appeal comes from broadening fallout from the deadly drug raid 7 months ago at 7815 Harding Street. According to charging documents, officers started investigating 3 weeks earlier after a tipster warned them about drugs and guns in small Pecan Park home. When police visited the house and didn't spot anything suspicious, the tip got passed on to Goins. 54-year-old lawman then allegedly set up a controlled buy using confidential informant, a deal he used as justification to ask a city judge for a no-knock raid, no-knock warrant. And let's see. Late on afternoon, January 28th, narcotics squad burst through the couple's front door in search of suspected heroin dealers. Instead, they shot a dog. They say lunged at them, sparking a gun battle. In the end, Tuttle and his wife were both killed and 5 officers injured. Authorities still haven't released a ballistics report detailing who fired which shots. And I think that should just be about it. But actually, I have physical news here. That's kind of interesting, right?
Well, that's crazy.
That's
I mean,
a pattern, man.
This is Would you say 2003? So we're 2019.
Got a few more good points here. Prosecutors in April dismissed a few dozen pending cases involving Goins and Bryant and launched a review of more than 2,200 cases they'd handled. So, yeah.
They need to let
FBI.
this guy can't be a credible witness just across the board, all the way through the past.
Well, he's being investigated by the DEA. There's supposedly a DOJ investigation going on. HPD said they concluded their own investigation, but we will keep our eye on this.
Almost
case.
Done with it. Even after prosecutors flagged possible problems with an officer in their case, it's still up to the defendants to file the appeal, as Christian did. Though his claim was only recently filed, Bunin was optimistic about the possible outcome. They say that there's a lot of people that might not have the necessary wherewithal to figure out what to do. They're sending out the letters, but they're concerned that people wouldn't have the wherewithal. So I know that one thing they do have in prison is radios. So I hope that hearing this maybe helps some to know what they need to do with the wherewithal, or if they know someone in prison that's always been maintaining their innocence. This is, maybe it's not Goins, but maybe there's another case.
I'm sure
like
there's
this.
other cases like this. Yeah, we're going to keep our eye on the Tuttle case, and of course now Gerald Goins, who's the officer implicated in this, and others. We will continue digging. I actually want to get a guest on soon named Justin Pulliam. Shout out to him. I've just found his work recently. He's active here in Houston investigating the Tuttles and keeping an eye on HPD, so we'll get him on soon. But we're going to go to a song real quick, and I think Johnny has a PSA that we're going to get into after that. Mike is going to talk about, and then I want to bring you guys the latest on Jeffrey Epstein before we're done, and of course phone calls. But the song we're about to play is a brand new song. It's not even fully mixed or mastered, but I figured we're going to share it with you early. Hopefully my band doesn't find out. Yeah, this is my band called Spectrum, and I'm doing vocals on here. It's called Face Your Shadow or Shadow of Our Former Selves. I don't know. Something along with shadow, right?
I don't know what the words are.
But check it out. You might be able to understand me. I think you'll dig the lyrics. And we'll be right back. 90.1 KPFT Houston.
Encapsulate the struggle, contain it within your palm. Hold your loved ones near, cause there's turbulence ahead. Now I ask you, what could be done? What words can we write? What can be said? To change our dogmas, our perceptions. Tainted with hate, faded into division. No longer principled, we're failing. We're becoming all that we oppose. Our hearts remain prisoners. Solitary confinement. Deterring the pure connection of unwavering love. From trails of tears to broken fears, humanity is being led astray. Take it back on your brother, your sister. Go dark on your mother. Silence. Show me the bones, the air, the soil. Come back down to earth, reconnect. There's more at stake than you understand. Don't suffer, what ties you to creation. I want you to know what this means to me. I want you to know what this means to me. Of destruction, incontainable. We can't see clearly what's obvious to you. Waiting to unleash the lies have been free. Free the minds. Free the
Hi kids, Hudson and Harris here. You know, the legal definition of marijuana recently changed in the state of Texas.
Marijuana used to be defined in Texas as cannabis with any amount of THC in it. But now, marijuana is defined as cannabis with a concentration of THC greater than 0.3%.
In short, hemp is no longer considered a controlled substance in Texas. So if an officer finds cannabis on you, how is he to tell if it's legal hemp or illegal marijuana? We think the state is now going to have to test it, and that's going to be tough for Texas to do in misdemeanor cases.
Unless, when the officer asks you, what's in this baggie? And you say, oh, shucks, that's my weed. Well, now you just made a judicial confession, and that can still be used against you to convict you of possession of marijuana and not require the state to have to test it at all.
So if an officer finds cannabis on you, you don't have to lie. When he asks you what it is, the only correct answer you should give is, I can't be sure. You're going to have to test it. We wrote a song to help you remember, don't say that it's weed. Is it hemp? Or is it weed? Is the THC over 0.3? You don't know, you're not a testing facility. It could be hemp, unless you called it weed. Nobody knows if it's pot or if it's hemp. They've got to show the THC content. Is it pot or is it not? Is the THC a little or a lot? Nobody knows. You don't have to lie when a cop says, what's this? After all, you're not a freaking scientist. It might be hemp if you don't call it weed. They got to test it unless you can see. Nobody knows if it's pot or if it's hemp. They've got to show the THC content. Is it pot or is it not? Is the THC a little or a lot? Nobody knows. And if a cop says, tell me what this is, or you're gonna get arrested, just say, I can't be sure. You're gonna have to test it because they've got to prove it. They can't do it unless you admit it, so don't be an idiot.
All right.
Don't be an idiot. I love that closing. For
Good
sure,
advice.
and that was a little public service announcement. I do want to. In 2016, highway patrol troopers conducted about 65,000 criminal arrests with no indication how many were for marijuana. In all of Texas in 2016, law enforcement officers arrested around 86,000 people on misdemeanor marijuana charges. And that's according to DPS. Turns out that across the state, for a little while now, they've been doing less arrests of small amounts because they couldn't, just like that says, they couldn't tell if it was hemp or not. And after a certain price range, it's not worth running the test on.
And most cops, especially in Harris County, don't have the equipment to even process it.
Exactly. And I had another article where they are talking about, bringing in different equipment to test it. But also there's another thing here where, it's talking about how these laws forward are sort of showing a change in the Texas attitude, or maybe the legislature getting more in line with the people, or more in line with freedom or something, with these laws changing. But it's asking, is Texas down for a marijuana legalization? And it says, we're pretty strict here, and there have been many rough penalties that can sometimes be severe. Texas in 2017 made 62,057 arrests related to marijuana possession. So think about that. That's 62,000 people just 2 years ago that had their lives affected because they had a plant in their possession. So, I guess half the states and some of the states in the country have made it recreational and just recognize it as a plant that you can consume. And those states haven't fallen into the ocean or caught on fire yet.
Nope.
So I don't know. Maybe it's time for the leadership in Texas to start recognizing freedom. I don't know. But
Well, I want to mention something about that while you said that, Micah, just briefly. I was at an event last night.
The Farm Bill did just pass in 2018.
Yeah, and that's what caused this whole hemp situation. But I was at an event last night. It was like a candidate forum / just cannabis gathering, honestly, of cannabis, entrepreneurs and medical patients and all this here in Houston, over off Parker Road and 45 North, where people were just gathering to hear about ideas and to discuss the future of cannabis in Houston and Texas in general. And so their moves are being made for those who haven't been paying attention.
Yeah, many cannabis players are cashing in on the hemp business. Turns out there's like food companies, Tilray, TLRY on the stock market, partook in Manitoba Harvest in February. All these different companies. Canopy Growth is moving forward with plan to open a New York hemp growing facility. So, Aurora Cannabis also been developing hemp-based product. And you see across the city of Houston all these CBD places that have opened up empty store shop fronts were empty, and now there's CBD and we buy gold.
Yeah.
But, I mean, seriously, things that people tell you gold's not money, and then, that there's no market for this. But they've got pet stores that have CBD and stuff. So, I mean, maybe getting out of the way is letting people use, what's here, the bounty of the earth and nature as they see fit. And you can just hold them, responsible for whatever laws.
Well, I'm going to switch gears real quick, because I know we got a call waiting. But before we get to that caller, there's one story that we've been covering, just like the Tuttles and just like the vaccine issue. This is something that's kind of a perennial issue. It's going to keep going, and the freedom in general. But this one particularly relates to a topic that we've covered often, which is unfortunately pedophilia and trafficking of children and sexual trafficking, child trafficking.
School's back in session, ain't it?
Related to the schools, related to cops, related to priests, related to powerful billionaires or wannabe billionaires like Jeffrey Epstein, who we've been told recently was killed by suicide at his own hands.
Suicided.
Two things I want to say though on that. First off, earlier this week, and this was a kind of quote-unquote historic thing, the victims, the women who've accused Jeffrey Epstein, and at this point, many of them have corroborated their stories, and I think it's safe to call them victims. But these women, 15 of them, I think, chose to come out, and some submitted letters that their lawyers read. But Jeffrey Epstein's case, now that he is apparently dead, is officially dismissed. Wouldn't you know that? All of a sudden, the criminal charges against him are gone. Of course, he's dead, right?
So there's no reason. Everything.
Well, so those charges have been dismissed, but the judge said, before we dismiss this, we will allow his victims to come speak. And they have never been allowed to speak in court, because every time he's been accused, they settle out of court, or he gets a sweetheart deal or whatever. So these women, 15 different women, some going under the name Jane Doe, others identifying themselves, detailed how they felt, how they're. I mean, it's pretty disturbing stuff. I actually did call into the Southern District of New York a couple days ago, and I paid the money to get the transcripts right away, because I wanted to be able to have them and read through them and see them. And yeah, a lot of it is pretty hard to read, these women describing how deeply traumatized they were. And that's important. I think it was just important to acknowledge that while we're researching and looking at Epstein and who he may be connected to, there are real victims involved in this too. And I think I've seen some journalists, independent, mainstream, etc., who get caught up in the hype of who they may or may not be connected to, which is obviously important. But sometimes the women who are trying to speak out, or have tried to speak out in the past and been silenced. We now know that Vanity Fair and other outlets heard about this back in 1996, but held on to the story because of the request of Jeffrey Epstein, things of that sort. So these women are now finally able to speak, and I thought that was important. So I just want to acknowledge that a lot of these ladies choosing to be really strong and just come out and say what happened to them, how they were trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and some of these other women. And that's important. Now, one thing on that is the lawyers also, and I read this in the transcripts that I got from the Southern District of New York, Jeffrey Epstein's own lawyers said they do not believe that he killed himself, and that they were asking the judge to investigate that. They said, based on the medical and forensic information we've received, we do not think this, we think this is more consistent with the homicide. So, not a conspiracy. That's from the lawyers of the man who killed himself.
How could there be a homicide in jail, though?
We know that he had he had some visitors at the last minute. We know the cops weren't actually cops. The guys on guard. One of them was a janitor. We know that they didn't
put a janitor on guard.
They didn't
guard Epstein.
They didn't check him every 30 minutes. They didn't check him for several hours. So
here's Lex Luthor. I want you to go ahead.
It's kind of like on 9/11. These things, everything goes wrong on one. All of a sudden. Oh, and by the way, I don't know if you heard, but the cameras in the hallway outside of his cell. Oh, those tapes don't work. They didn't work.
Body cameras.
None of the tapes worked. All this stuff.
Must have been a magnet or something.
I don't know. But anyways, I'm just saying his own attorneys say they don't believe. They believe that his death is more consistent with the homicide. And now the last thing I want to say, and I'll shut up about Jeffrey Epstein because I think this is important to stay on, is whether he's dead or alive or hiding or was killed by somebody. We don't know. Unfortunately, his own lawyers are questioning it. Plenty of people are questioning it. But some of these people are still alive. Ghislaine Maxwell, the socialite who is daughter of Robert Maxwell, who's now a deceased former British tabloid publisher who is connected to the Israeli Mossad. We have Sarah Kellen, who is married to a NASCAR driver, has reinvented herself. Nadia Marcinkova. These women are still out there. These are the women that helped recruit these young girls and got them out of modeling agencies, got them from schools, got them from different places. They're still out there. There's still allegations against Prince Andrew. There's still allegations against Donald Trump and Bill Clinton and other people. And, there are many, many more layers to this story than what we are being told, and not even in the mainstream. They are definitely reporting on it. And New York Times today saying, actually looking at how a ring of women allegedly recruited girls for Jeffrey Epstein, and actually, the focus is moving there. So that's what we are going to continue to do, in addition to maybe reaching out to one of these lawyers. Maybe one of the lawyers wants to come on Freethinker Radio and tell us why they think their client was maybe killed by a by
that's
murder.
Probably a good thing.
So we'll keep an eye on that. And that's all I got. I know we had a caller, Johnny, that we've probably been waiting patiently, and you wanted to talk about vaccines, I think. You on the line with us. What's on your mind?
Hey, Derrick and Micah and Johnny. This is Joe Zenner. What's up, bro?
Hey, what's up, Joe?
Not much, man.
Hey.
Yeah, I had a quick comment about vaccines and fluoride. A little update on fluoride, if you hadn't heard.
Yep.
So in terms of vaccines, what I wanted to mention is, I'm a chemical engineer, and we talk a lot about active versus inerts, right? And, like, mercury, which is the thing I have the most issue with in the vaccines, is a non-active component. It's inert. Like, it doesn't make any sense that it would be there. I think so many people are angry that people like me want to take away their vaccines that vaccinate their children and give their children immunity. And I think it's important to note that what I actually take issue with isn't even active in the vaccine. It's not a part of the vaccination. It's not a part of immunity. It's a random ingredient that happens to be one of the biggest poisons on the planet that they're slipping in there. So I think there's something a little more sinister there when they're adding an ingredient. I mean, what does it do? It's an emulsifier and it's a preservative. But
are you talking about
and emulsifiers out there that don't kill people? You were taught when you were younger not to play with it.
Joseph, are you talking about thimerosal, the mercury-containing compound?
Indeed.
So for the listeners, is thimerosal still currently in vaccines?
It's been removed from a lot of vaccines, but it's still in a lot of flu shots.
So, look, I'm looking at the CDC's website right now. It says, thimerosal is a mercury-based preservative that has been used for decades in the U.S. in multi-dose vials for medicines and vaccines. They claim there's no evidence of harm by low doses of thimerosal, and they say, this is, of course, the CDC. In July 1999, the Public Health Service agencies and vaccine manufacturers agreed that thimerosal should be reduced or eliminated in vaccines as a precautionary measure. So it's been removed from some, but I'm guessing you're saying that there are some that still have it?
I'm fairly certain that the majority of flu shots still have it. I'm pretty sure that some flu shots have it.
Yeah, I'm asking because I don't know. That's why, I have no idea.
Yeah, and I got a quick story for you. When I was about 10 years ago, my daughter was about 4, and I went to the doctor because she was sick, and the next shots were up, and I just started researching this, and so I said, actually, I don't want to give her this shot. I don't want any mercury in her bloodstream. And the doctor said, oh, no, they stopped putting mercury in it years ago. And I said, oh, great. So let me just, see the ingredients and whatnot just to make sure. And right there was thimerosal. Like, he didn't even know he was putting mercury into children's bloodstream, So that's a major part of the problem right there. These doctors don't even know what they're giving you.
I think a big point that Joe's bringing to the dialogue is that, by us having the ability to discuss it, there's all kinds of routes, right? And one thing that he's, obviously taken contention with is the ingredients in the vaccine that are unnecessary, as he's pointed out.
Mm-hmm.
While if it's just mandatory and left to the authorities, we can't have these sort of dialogues. So it's very important that everybody, that's interested, digest the information, form their opinion, and et cetera. I know earlier we had someone call and ask, where'd this person get their degree from or something.
And somebody else cussed at us. Or Johnny.
Yeah, it's been a rough show. But at the same time, you've just expressed a point that hasn't been made in all the calls on vaccines, and I think it's important, and it shows why we need to have the dialogue be open to everybody. Thank you, KPFT, for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you, Joe, for your call. We're gonna have to wrap up, man.
And one more quick comment on that, and then a quick comment on fluoride. I'll let you guys
go. We got just 30 seconds with you.
Okay, I'll give you 30 seconds. I'll tell you about fluoridation. And so there's a site, I believe it's called awoke.co, and a story just came out that a group called Food and Water Watch has basically they brought it to court, and the EPA tried to block it, and the judge just denied the block. So it looks like this is actually going to be seen in court, and there's a chance that across the country, fluoride will be removed from water. So
yeah, I've seen that lawsuit. Thank you, Joe, for calling in. We appreciate it.
Hey, have a good one.
Keep up the good work.
And I know Joe probably wanted to mention that there was just a study last week, third study in the last 8 years, finding link to fluoride lowering IQ and kids who mothers are drinking fluoride water. So we'll talk more about that next week. But thank you guys for listening.
Yeah, join more of the Dialogue Monday. We're on the HD side. Hear more music. Call in. Get deeper into the subject. We're going to have a lot of news, and then we'll be back on the FM Friday. So show keeps getting more and more calls. Thank you so much for being involved. Thanks, KPFT, for the
next
opportunity.
time.
Great weekend.
Enjoy Labor Day. Peace.